All right, and welcome back to the Big Picture with Ian Nash. I'm your host, Ian, and we're back with Grant. Grant, what's up, man?
What is up? It's good to be back again. We always have a great time, and looking forward to today and our topic we were discussing. We might want to launch into here. So
Yeah,
rock
man.
and roll, you know.
Yeah, let's do it. So I wanted to talk about a couple Bible verses that kind of seem to reference supernatural phenomena,
Hmm.
things that might some people might theorize could be things from space or UFOs or anything like that. This isn't necessarily focused on that and whether, you know,
Hmm.
individual beliefs on what these things could be, but we're exploring that. We're exploring different possibilities. And then I
Yep.
guess whether that leads into today or maybe in a future session into our kind of discussion of angels, and human beings' experiences of angels, both in past and then potentially in the current day as
Hmm.
well. So
Cool.
yeah,
Sounds great.
so so the first one
Uh-huh.
is and I'm looking at New King James. I think that's what you have in front of you as well. Um, would be Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 4. And I'll just go ahead because I
Okay.
like to read it. So I'll just read it and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
So this one is then I looked and behold a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it and radiating out of the midst like the color of amber out of the midst of the fire.
And
Mhm.
well, yeah, that's definitely a spaceship. Yeah. Uh, Yeah, what are your there's so many of those. I mean,
so,
I think of
so here,
Elijah calling down fire, with the
right?
prophets of Baal.
Yeah,
Um there's a lot of the fire ends up showing up a lot in the Bible, all kinds of different ways. Um, what do you think? So what do you
yeah.
think? This is one that they do use to say, look, it's a spaceship,
I love. Yeah, I don't. And maybe I'll screen share it later. But I love that.
Mhm.
Have you seen that painting from the Middle Ages, where it's like
The
very
flying saucer
clearly,
going by.
yeah, with a laser coming down to the people. Yeah, that's I love that one. But I'll maybe we'll screen share it a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess the question is like, okay, so what was this person experiencing, right? You know, okay, a whirlwind coming out of the north, a great cloud, raging fire, right? A color of amber, right? So, I can't help but say that does mirror what a lot of people who have UFO experiences, they do see, balls of red and amber and, things like that. These great, like, in that day, in that time period, that person wouldn't say, oh, that's a UFO. That person would say, oh, that's a raging fire in the sky. So, that's just would be one theory. So is this person seeing into the spiritual world? Are they seeing something that's physically happening? And is it something that we can experience today?
Well, the probably the most honest answer is I don't have a clue. But, I guess with Ezekiel, I mean, he one of the prophets. He's got a million and one visions, and so there's this one with the fire coming down, but then there's a gazillion others of all different kinds and sorts and natures, and so as with any religion that follows the Bible or anyone that wants to go in and find something that looks interesting, you can pick out these little pieces and make it into something. Uh, so I'm skeptical, in the sense of like, do I believe that they're whatever we call them today, other worlds, and maybe they're looking in on us and stuff? Actually, absolutely. I can't believe that we're the only ones in the universe, and I can't believe that we're the smartest ones. I hope not.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that way. And it's just fascinating how the government has come out and said, yeah, these things are out there. They don't know what they are, but I mean, finally somebody's admitting this stuff. That's really cool. I mean, it's also a little scary, I guess, but Obviously, if they were nefarious, we probably wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so what are they seeing? I don't know. You know, paintings like that, I think a lot of times they're trying to depict something, right? I mean, we could go into angels right away and go, when angels were depicted as having wings, um, uh, history will tell you that that was because painters were trying to show that these were messengers coming all the way from God, and the only way to differentiate between that angel and, say, Mother Mary or one of the disciples or whatever was to put wings on them, you know, and that theoretically people didn't even believe, or you know, that they had wings. It was just a way of
Maybe
showing
appreciate
that,
it.
and then people forgot about that. And maybe that's kind of something that's happening now, in the sense of like, this picture here represents God's light or love coming down on us or whatever. But um, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I got so many. I'd love to hear back from you on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like from, from like a new age perspective, I would
Hmm.
say, like angels are essentially interdimensional beings. Like there's not like a differentiation. It's like what in the Christian tradition we might call heaven, people in that tradition would be just saying like higher realms, higher
Yeah.
dimensions, like fifth dimension, sixth dimension, seventh, and right, that type of thing. And just like the more angelic a being is, they're just from a higher plane of existence, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously, just like
Agreed.
UFOs, not even just UFOs or extraterrestrials connected to the Bible, just like obviously it's a huge topic, and what is okay to talk about today, 20 years ago, you would have been branded as a crazy person, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
as time goes on, these topics become acceptable,
Yeah.
right? So, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have personally had a UFO experience, like not that I met an
Hmm.
alien, but
Hmm.
yeah, like like
Cool.
about two years ago, I saw something in the sky and it didn't move and it didn't look like a ship and it didn't look like a plane and who knows what it was, so yeah, but a lot of people have had this kind of anecdotal experiences, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, that and who knows? I mean, again, that's what, these, pilots are seeing these things and nobody knows what they are, and they seem to defy our laws of physics, and seem to, in some ways, have some kind of intentionality. So that's something very possible. I love what you're saying though about different realities. I think one of the things that, again, Swedenborg, 18th century scientist, theologian, means a lot to us, studying him all these years. He talks about that, basically that is what heaven is. It's a different dimension. Now he means, maybe in the traditional Christian terms, heaven, right? Heaven, hell, whatever, but that they are basically a alternate reality, a deeper reality that we come into. And I think you've said it so well, that however you want to put it, the higher, the more, the inmost, the more functional, the whatever, are on deeper levels of that reality. And maybe that's what is showing up in the Bible. I mean, in the sense of that, um, there's a lot, like we're talking about the symbolism and stuff like that, but like, say, fire, I mean, fire is so symbolic, as you know, of love and coming down from God, or life, just and so, in a sense, what Ezekiel was seeing was completely otherworldly and alien to our, and intentional. It just, again, right? It's just all how you look at it and define it.
Yeah, well, and talking about Ezekiel and kind of it being alien and otherworldly to him, you know, some of the theories out there are that like these beings or whatever they are, they're like us from the future, like they can time travel. I don't know, I just like I don't know why that when you said that made me think of that. It was just like it's otherworldly, but it's just like us. I mean, and this kind of goes back to the kind of like we are all connected type thing of just like every being in the universe is us. And I would agree with what you said earlier. I mean, I just from a mathematical standpoint, I can't possibly believe that in this universe of our one galaxy with billions, 200 billion stars in just our galaxy, and then there being billions of galaxies in our
Uh-huh.
universe, for us to be the only intelligent life just doesn't make any sense to me, right? And the
Mhm.
fact that, the Earth was formed way, 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 way after the Big Bang, whereas there were other galaxies and planets that formed much closer to the Big Bang. So that a different civilization could be, 100 million years more developed than we are. Like I view that as very possible, right? But of course, I have no
People.
proof of any of those things. But yeah, that's just for me from a mathematical standpoint.
Mhm.
I can't. And then I guess maybe if you guys, I would be interested in your thoughts on this. Like a lot of people think that like Christianity and maybe specifically the Catholic Church is like inconsistent with there being like other intelligent races
Mm.
in the universe,
Yeah.
right? That God came here and we're
Yeah.
special and it's only us.
Right.
But I don't believe that Christianity is inconsistent with there being other intelligent life in the universe at all. So yeah.
I don't either, but I do know exactly what you mean, and I think that um, Christianity has been historically. I'm not talking about the faith necessarily. Been pretty narcissistic, or absorbed and self-centered. And I think that might be true. If you were to look in every religion, you have those literalistic, that little literalistic approach of, we're the ones, so to speak. I mean, from the Israel being, we're the chosen people, to the Israelites, to Christians believing that they're the ones that are saved, to I'm sure we could go through every religion and find. I'm not going to, but I mean, Judeo-Christian's easy to pick on, right? Because that's the culture we grow up in. But every religion has that in it, and I don't buy into it. But let's go a little further with this alien thing for a second, because um, the root of the word angel means messenger. And
Angel.
so that, when you look at messenger from God, okay, that's right. That's how it's interpreted in religion. And that's how I interpret it. I mean, in the sense of like in the Bible, these messengers show up. But it is interesting because most people think angel is some kind of special whatever um, that manifests itself, when actually a lot of times in the Bible it's just somebody shows up and they're glowing, and it says, the angel of the Lord just means the messenger. Now
E-
it's just kind of interesting because in this topic, just to throw out there, messenger, huh? I mean, from a
yeah.
different
Well,
level, right?
and the messenger, but then you think about Mercury, right? Mercury is the messenger god. So who knows? Maybe angels are from Mercury. Who knows?
Oh, now we're going to bring. Well, we can bring in astronomy and astrology now, and
Yes, we
whatever else.
could. Yes, we certainly
I love
could.
that. I mean, let's blow our minds. Let's, completely here. We can,
Sure.
uh, and Mercury, right? We could say, we were once on Mercury in the future.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll blow your mind, right? So we're all one. No, okay. I love it. And
Yeah.
I mean, let's keep on going. I mean, when Pilate said, "So you are a king," to Jesus, Jesus said, "What? My kingdom is not of this world." Okay. Now, again, before I get fired from my, faith over here, I mean, he's talking
Yeah.
about his kingdom is a heavenly kingdom. But then
Right.
again, even heaven means sky. So
Well, or even the fact that we use the phrase celestial bodies, right?
right.
Like we call like that's that there's a connection there, right? Like it's it could be a
Yeah.
stronger connection than people, might think. It's like these, you know, that because I
Yeah.
mean that goes even further into the perspective of kind of like the Gaia hypothesis that like the Earth is a living being, the Earth has a soul, right?
Mm,
Mars has a soul,
mm.
Venus has a soul, the sun has a soul, right? All these different things. Um, yeah, because yeah, like
Very cool.
yeah, so those are all possible too.
I think so.
Um,
I mean, what also just that heaven, I mean, I'm thinking right here, it's so archetypal. I mean, like there's these, heaven and the sky, the sky archetype of heaven, or flip it around. And what's interesting about that is again, Swedenborg talks so much about that every single story in the Bible has these deeper level upon level of what Jung called archetypal, meanings. And, Jung got that from Swedenborg, but that's also that answers in a way why we use parallel images of spiritual and natural, sky, celestial, fire, love. I mean, there's these messenger, um, can mean so much. Angel. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean that just makes me think about like we were talking about before, like God, we're translating
Mhm,
it as I am. Like, let's
mhm.
say if in a version of the Bible, instead of saying God, we say I am, and then everywhere it says angel, we just put messenger, right?
Yes.
And that, yeah, I mean it's so. And again, this makes me think about, so Christianity is a monotheistic religion, right? So believing in one God, right? But if you're talking about angels, I mean, you never kind of conceptualize angels as gods or demigods, but that might just be a difference in terms of terminology and semantics. Because if we're saying that there's other celestial beings other than the one God, right, then there are other beings who are doing things for God. Aren't we, in some way, are we being, believing in, and it's, believing in more than one God because there are other beings helping God. So I don't know.
Well, I think that again, I mean, that's an interesting thought. I don't think that Christianity is that far away from that, actually. I mean, in the sense of traditional Christianity, believing that angels are beings that were created in that realm. I mean, that they are heavenly angels, and that they are helpers of God. And so, in a way, with Christian mythology, I'm going to call it, I mean, because there isn't a lot of it in the Bible, that they are superhuman beings. It's interesting. Again, Swedenborg turns around and says, after he says he visited that world for 35 years in his book Heaven and Hell, and other books, as you're well aware, he's definitive in saying all heaven is from the human race. That, and I just point that out. I mean, the sense that from the idea that this world, meaning all worlds, is a place of preparation and growth, to be born into this other world, whether you want to say for a while or coming back or whatever or not. But it's still, the human race are those, according to Swedenborg, who become those evolved beings in the other world, citizens of heaven, who turn around and are those who are the helpers of God. But they all started here. And one or the other, I believe that, probably just because my faith teaches me that, but I think either way it still works. I mean, but again, I think it's interesting. In some ways, I challenge that Christianity is monotheistic, not like Judaism or Islam, or because that whole
I
Trinity of persons thing. I mean, a lot of the
Yes.
monotheistic religions look at Christianity and go, "Wait a minute, what do you mean monotheistic? You've got these three separate people from creation walking around." And and again, it depends on how you. I don't, as you're quite aware, I don't necessarily believe in the traditional Christian Trinity of three separate persons, but three different ways, that aspects of God, the way God is comes to us. Jesus is an incarnation of God, according to my faith, not a separate being from eternity. But you see what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe Christianity isn't so monotheistic. Now, I just went on my own roll there for too long.
Yeah. No,
Your
no, that
turn.
was great. No, I think, yeah, that is kind of one of those things where I think the new church kind of had a good explanation for it, but I kind of like, well, yeah, it's one God, but it's actually three gods, but it's not really three gods, but it is three gods. And so I think a lot of people find that to be pretty confusing, um, but yeah, I mean, I it's, it's, it's a big thing. It's a big topic for sure.
Oh, sure is. I mean, like let's keep talking about angels for a little bit here. I find that fascinating. I mean, in the sense of like, okay, esoterically, maybe we don't really know, but
Yeah. Well,
what about people's experiences?
well, that's what I wanted to ask you. And again, this is
Uh-huh.
angels. This is so I do remember as a child, growing up in the new church, being taught that Swedenborg did have some experiences of seeing beings on Jupiter or on Saturn or on different planets. What's kind of your explanation? And I'm sure you know a lot more about it than I do. What's kind of your explanation of that? And what did he see or what did he experience?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, he did. He wrote a book, Earths in the Universe, with all the other books, and it was interesting because everybody believed that there were people on different planets. At that point, they were starting to think that anyway, that it couldn't just be us. And rationally, I think he was one of the, and went very much in opposition of the traditional idea that we're the only ones, that Christianity was putting forth, saying, hey, look, rationally, how could we be? And so in that regard, I think he was a genius. Now, when he goes off into, it's interesting reading his book, Earths in the Universe, where he goes off and, here's another Earth in the starry heavens, and here's who's on this planet, and here's who's on that planet. And it's very, again, archetypal. I mean, in the sense of like Jupiter, it's this kind of person. Mars, it's this kind of person. Even the moon, this kind of person. And it really uh, is unlike any of his other works. So, I mean, right there, I'm going, well, scientifically, like, okay, well, where are these people? If, Swedenborg said they're there and I don't see them, it doesn't mean they're not in some other different kind of existence, or like we've talking about levels of reality. Or maybe they were billions and billions of years ago, or in the future, but um I really look at that, that one little work, of his out of the many, many volumes as almost some kind of poetic explanation, or can I go so far as some kind of code, what's going on there to help explain something about humanity. Um, but that's always been a mystery because Swedenborg is one of the most rational, I mean, the most rational theologian I have ever studied. And I love his approach because it gives me the freedom to look at all religions. I mean, he's like, go look at them all. I mean, what he says, I find is the most rational explanation to, go forward and explore from, that basis. And yet, some of that stuff about that he talks about these different planets, I don't understand. I don't really get. It's got to mean something deeper than that. But again, you look at all of it, right? I mean, we're just talking about the Bible. Well, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. We know it's not all literal. We know it's not all scientifically accurate. Doesn't mean it's not true, in a sense of what is truth and teaching us something deeper about our lives.
Well, that leads into another question is to what degree do we take these stories as literal, right? Like, like
Hmm.
I was just going through different Bible verses that use the word angel, and it was talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And like, so do we look at Sodom and Gomorrah and we say this was an actual city that was destroyed by angels or whatever it was, or do we say, okay, this didn't really happen, but I mean, like, because I totally get what you're saying. It's like we can't take everything in the Bible literally. Like, you shouldn't smash your son's head on the rock, right?
Exactly.
Like, you probably
Right.
shouldn't. You shouldn't actually do that, right?
No, yeah.
Um, but I just think it's a very interesting debate just about the degree to which the Bible is historically accurate or was representative of something or
Yeah.
describing something that was happening in in the spiritual world. So
And that again, that's a huge. We should write that one down. That's going to be its own show. I mean, in that sense,
yeah,
because. But just to say here that um, I think they can both be true. I mean, I would say, with it's very easy to go for me to say, Jesus in the New Testament there was a guy named Jesus, and there is we know I've been on the Sea of Galilee, and and that in some way or another, we know healings can take place and a lot of stuff. But when you get back into things like the sun stood still in the valley of Ajalon while Joshua, took on some enemy, I mean, right there you go, well, no, it didn't. Right there, something was happening there, or um, it was appearing to happen, or it's just a story with a deeper meaning inside of it. I think that, so I think that literally, I think that that there obviously there was an Israel, on like that, and I mean these people were real. But when it comes to those type of miracles, I think it's something spiritual that they're seeing, or perhaps there's something natural that's happening that is being interpreted in a certain way. But in a way, I want to say, as a scholar, who cares? I mean, I'm not pinning anything on the literal meaning of that story. It's all pinned on what it means to me and you universally on those deeper levels.
Yeah, the teachings of it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think when I put on my UFO tin hat and
Mhm.
read the Bible that way, it's really interesting. Like if you, especially the Old Testament, if you just look at it and you read all these stories and just take it from a literal sense and just say, okay, this was Sodom and Gomorrah did get destroyed by angels and all these different things. It just becomes it really does look like a lot of like UFOs and just like and blowing stuff up and because even the Vedic texts
Yeah.
in ancient Hindu traditions and Sanskrit traditions they talk about like these vehicles that these different elevated beings were using to get around so yeah, but yeah, you can't. I would say like if you're coming from the UFO perspective, you don't look at the Bible as teaching necessarily teaching lessons. You look at it as a story, and then you just view it from that way. And it's really fun to look at the Bible that way, but that doesn't mean that it's true. It's just an interesting way to look at it.
Well, I do that. I mean, like, I one of the movies that I know, again, I mean, some people it just doesn't work for them at all. But when The Last Temptation of Christ came out, Martin Scorsese, and the whole idea that did Christ have to die on the cross? And in that, I don't want to ruin it for people, but in the story, in the movie or the book, the angel tells him, "You don't have to die. You can come off." And the shock of the first time I saw it, of watching him come off that cross, I don't have to die. I mean, no, you're not I'm not the Messiah. No, you're not. Until down the road, he realizes, oh, yes, I am. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But did that happen? No, not at all. Did it blow my mind to make me think about what really is said in the Bible there about it? Yes, it did. I mean, it totally got me to think about this in a different way. And I think that party was part of his last temptation, right? I mean, that maybe I mean, it was all for nothing. He didn't even have to do it. Who knows? I guess all I'm saying is something like thinking, like, is it possible some of these things were aliens? It's fun to think about. Maybe I'll even learn something from it. I don't, I don't buy into it, but then again, we don't buy into a lot of different things, right?
Yeah,
Anyway, great stuff.
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So I guess just thinking about us today, the world in which we live today, can we as individuals, can we have experiences of angels, and people who do claim to have these types of experiences? And this, I guess, this connects to the, near death experience, the out of body experience. These people who come very close to
Yeah.
death, or even just, well, people who their grandmother just passed. You're in the hospital,
Hmm.
your grandmother just passed away, and then like you see her spirit and these different things like is it possible today? Can we? I mean, this is kind of connected to the new age part of it. Is I kind of have like a uh energy worker type friend, and she very much would encourage people to talk to their guardian angels and ask them for blessings and ask them for care and to protect you and all these different things. Um, So yeah, I guess is my question is like, do we have guardian angels? Are do we have angels with us all the time? Can we ask for their support? And can we interact with them? Can we experience that love or call that love and support into our lives?
Wow. All in 5 minutes or something. I think that look, again, it's a matter of faith. I mean, how do I know really? I mean, have I had experiences like that? Yes. I mean, all of those things. I mean, do I know people who have much more of more of a sensitivity toward beings, spiritual beings, angels, what you call them? Yes, I do know people like that. And for some, it seems like a natural thing. Sometimes these things happen, like you say. There's a whole study and phenomena about visitations. From people that have passed on. It's as real as the near-death experience. As far as I'm concerned. So I believe in all of that stuff. It happens. Can I? But I do say again. Swedenborg is funny because he comes out and he goes, "Hey, look, there are spirits and angels and all that, but like, look, you're not supposed to be trying to contact spirits." He says because angels really aren't that interested in taking away your freedom. They are talking to us all the time. I mean, with their love and their connections and their inflow into us, right? To know that, to believe that, to say, "Hey, I'm having a bad day, God, I could use your help." Great. But it's funny, Swedenborg says it's dangerous to try to communicate with spirits, like, say, I mean, I've been in seances and stuff like that. But he says, but it's a natural thing. He says, if we were really, really spiritual, we would be talking to angels all the time. But he says, and it's funny because he waxes very fundamentalist when he says, if you want to learn truth, go to the Bible. That kind of truth. Um, that's my real quick Swedenborg look at it. But it's a fascinating field, and there's so much there. There's so much, and we have to have a whole show on that. I mean, there's so much to talk about in that whole area of visitations or seeing angels or how they help us and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, man. Great one today. And yeah,
Wow, yeah.
we'll keep it going.
We'll keep rocking on this one. It's just great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ian. That was
Yeah.
awesome today. It's a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Thanks. See ya.